On Jamaica Magazine today, we navigate the vital intersection of personal planning and national priorities. We'll explore how Jamaicans can safeguard their legacies, examine the role of state administration in the absence of a will, and highlight critical areas of focus by the government. You're watching Jamaica Magazine. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Welcome.
Good day, I'm Lisa Rowe and this is your JIS News for Thursday, March 27, 2025. Several issues that have been the source of regional and public concern in Jamaica in recent weeks, in the wake of new policy directives from the United States government, were addressed by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in a joint press conference with Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness yesterday. Our reporter, Jabertha Atkinson, has the details.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio left the island today after wrapping up a two-day high-level visit to the country, his first to Jamaica since taking on the job. Following bilateral talks with Prime Minister Andrew Holness at Jamaica House, he gave clarity on the future of foreign aid to Jamaica, the Cuban medical program, and impact of travel advisories issued for the island. Secretary Rubio reaffirmed that the United States was not stepping away from providing foreign aid, but said the approach would be more strategically aligned with the U.S. foreign policy priorities and the need of partner nations.
At the end, our partner in Jamaica, our partner all over the world, is the government. It's the host governments who have a clear vision for the future. And to the extent that our foreign aid can be helpful, it is in furtherance of what the people of your country have elected you to carry out.
The U.S. Secretary of State and Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness also discussed Washington's recent warning that it may impose visa restrictions on officials linked to the Cuban Medical Corporation program and what that means for countries like Jamaica who participate in the arrangement. Secretary Rubio has accused the Cuban government of exploiting medical workers, but Prime Minister Holness stressed that this is not the case in Jamaica, as the government adheres to best practices in keeping with international labor laws.
Jamaica has a deficit in health personnel, primarily because many of our health personnel have migrated to other countries. We are, however, very careful not to exploit the Cuban doctors who are here. We ensure that they are treated within our labor laws and benefit like any other worker. So any characterization of the program by others certainly would not be applicable to Jamaica.
In response, the U.S. Secretary of State said he would engage with the Jamaican government to gain a better understanding of the local situation with the program.
Every country operates the program differently. And obviously, because of our relationship with Jamaica, we're going to engage with them on that and talk about it further and have a better understanding. Perhaps none of this applies in the way it's handled here.
Another vexing issue with specific implications for the tourism sector is the matter of travel advisories issued for the island, with a current warning advising Americans to reconsider visiting the country due to high crime rates. Prime Minister Holness challenged that designation.
Jamaica today is safer than at any time in the last 2 decades. In fact, crimes against visitors represent less than 0.01% of the more than 3 million visitors to Jamaica annually.
The U.S. Secretary of State said the matter would be reviewed.
Those travel advisories are designed to American travelers. And I think we need to analyze that and just ensure that the status we're currently in accurately reflects the status quo and takes into account the progress you've already made this year and made last year, year over year, which I think is one of the highest numbers in terms of reductions that we've seen of any country in the region.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness revealed that plans were in place for discussions with the U.S. State Department to ensure they accurately reflect Jamaica's current realities and support tourism.
Also coming out of the U.S. Secretary of State's high-level visit to Jamaica, a renewed commitment to partnership on security matters of concern to both countries and the wider Caribbean. The areas of cooperation include combating transnational crime, border security, lottery scamming, trafficking of guns, and building safer communities.
We are committed in ensuring our partnership delivers results in driving down criminality and trafficking in this hemisphere.
What we're talking about here when we talk about American assistance is America helping Jamaica build its own capacity, its own ability to confront these challenges and solve these problems, because security is a baseline for everything.
On the specific issue of lottery scamming, the U.S. Secretary of State pledged the provision of synthetic detection equipment, software, and night vision technology. While in Jamaica, Mr. Rubio also met one-on-one with the Prime Ministers of Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago, as well as the head of Haiti's Transitional Council. Jamaica has been identified as a key candidate for increased manufacturing relocation as the United States government moves to realign its global trade policies. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the opportunity is mutually beneficial as Jamaica's proximity to North America would improve supply chains and enhance economic ties.
But it makes all the sense in the world to see more productive capacity, more manufacturing, more industry relocated into our hemisphere. We certainly have the labor and the population and the desire to do so in our hemisphere. It's closer to the end markets. And so we want to pursue opportunities to make that possible, and creation of not just jobs, but jobs that pay even better than the jobs that maybe some could find.
He also highlighted America's interest in exporting liquefied natural gas, LNG, to the Caribbean.
You cannot have manufacturing without reliable and affordable energy. And so it's one of those things that I think potentially we could continue to partner along.
In other news, more than 800 primary and secondary schools across Jamaica are set to benefit from a science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics STEAM education in schools program. The initiative, set to cost £1.7 million, will provide valuable STEAM educational opportunities and training for teachers and students over the next 3 years. It was launched recently as a joint effort of the Ministry of Education, eLearning Jamaica, the National Education Trust, and the Microbit Educational Foundation and the British Council.
The British Council remains committed to working alongside Jamaica to open those doors of opportunity, to inspire new generations of thinkers, creators, and leaders, and to ensure that no young person is left behind in the digital age.
Education Minister Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon describes the program as a critical cross-agency and bilateral partnership that will help the government achieve its goal of making Jamaica a STEAM country.
We expect through this project to have over 10,000 teachers trained in STEAM education. Also, 1,350 master STEM teachers will also be trained, and there'll be some courses that will be done online and offline. Over 7,000 primary teachers will also be receiving hands-on training, because we understand that you have to start early. And so in the primary schools, it's very important.
Additionally, approximately 32,000 programmable microbit devices will be distributed to primary school students, providing them with an opportunity to explore coding and digital creation. eLearning Jamaica will provide laptops, desktops, tablets, interactive panels, and projectors to support the program's delivery. And finally, the National Housing Trust, NHT, is seeking to partner with international and local developers towards providing low-income homes on land owned by the housing agency. Senior General Manager for Construction and Development at the NHT, Brian Saunders, says under the initiative, the developers will undertake the requisite funding and designs for the housing projects. The NHT will purchase 80% of the housing units at a reduced cost, while the developers have the option of retaining the remaining 20% for sale. Interested developers must submit an application form to become pre-qualified.
We have a portal that the projects that are available are advertised, and the developers throughout the life of the program can now download the application process, provide the necessary documentations so that they can be admitted through our pre-qualification process, which we assess in terms of their track record.
Interested parties may reach out to the NHT on its website, nht.gov.jm. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Lisa Rowe. Thanks for watching.
Flu season is here. Let's fight the flu with these tips. Stay up to date with recommended flu vaccines. Practice good hygiene, that is frequent hand washing and sanitizing, covering your mouth and nose when sneezing, and sanitizing frequently touched surfaces. You're also encouraged to eat a balanced diet, take vitamin and mineral supplements, stay hydrated, and stay away from persons displaying flu-like symptoms. Protect yourself this flu season.
Up next, we highlight another critical area of focus that was detailed by Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness in his budget debate presentation.
As we continue our mission to build a stronger and more inclusive Jamaica, we recognize that many of our citizens are in need but do not benefit from any existing government program. To address this, we are introducing the $1 billion Solidarity Program, and in its first iteration, we will be providing a one-time cash grant of $20,000 to 50,000 vulnerable individuals who are not enrolled in PATH, social pension, NIS, or the reverse income tax credit. So the initiative will support elderly persons in need, youth not engaged in education or employment, micro businesses affected by disaster, low-income informal workers, medically indigent individuals, and persons with disabilities facing economic hardship. We have to find all of these people who are in the society who are left out and who are suffering. We recognize that some of these persons may lack formal identification, and this may be a barrier to them participating in other social support programs. The government will assist them in obtaining birth certificates through Operation Birthright and securing a national identification card to facilitate their inclusion in future opportunities. So we are proposing the online portal that was used for the CARE program during the pandemic, and applications will be made through this portal. Referrals will be managed through the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, and we will enlist the members of Parliament, as they did during the pandemic, to find the persons in their constituencies who qualify and ensure that they enroll for this program. There can be no digital society without a proper system of identification and authentication. A national identification system has been talked about for over 50 years. The government has finally got it done. We commenced issuing Jamaica's first electronic identification cards on November 15, 2024. The next step is to develop and expand digital services that leverage this secure and reliable form of identification. With the new electronic national identification cards, citizens will be able to verify their identity securely online, eliminating the need for cumbersome paperwork and in-person visits. This will pave the way for e-government services, digital payments, and more efficient, transparent, and inclusive public sector. We are not only making life easier for our people, but also unlocking new opportunities for innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic growth. Madam Speaker, pensioners currently have to complete a proof of life form every 3 months and get it signed by a JP. We will soon be introducing the I'm Alive app that will enable you to use your national ID to complete the proof of life form from the comfort of your home in no more than 2 minutes. I want to emphasize that the I'm Alive app is just an option, and if persons choose to use the old way, fine with us, but there is now this greater
convenient way which we encourage our pensioners to use. We are committed to transforming informal settlements into secure, legally recognized communities that foster stability, economic development, and a better quality of life for all Jamaicans. The HAJ has been tasked with the upgrading of 81 informal communities, with work set to begin in Eden Park, St. Mary. To expand home ownership, the HAJ plans to implement 10,000 housing starts and 4,000 completed solutions over the next 4 years. The HAJ will also be intervening in 5 small, informal urban communities, 5 acres or less, to upgrade their housing and infrastructure, replicating the success of the St. Paul's Lane model. We have identified communities in Almond Town, Anato Bay, Parade Gardens, Long Acres in Montego Bay, and Russia in Sabna Mar as communities to benefit from this intervention. Through systematic land titling and registration, the National Land Agency is set to deliver 12,000 titles, ending this year, and they are targeting an additional 8,000 additional titles in 2025-2026. The NLA, Mr. Speaker, is well advanced in deploying a system of electronic titles. So this will transform the whole issuing of titles and the speed. In fact, they are expecting to start by 2027-2028. We are now ready to use systematic titling to regularize parcels in urban areas, starting with a pilot in Kingston and St. Andrew. To support this expansion, we are increasing the number of commissioned land surveyors through an apprenticeship program at the NLA, with plans to train 33 student surveyors and equip them with modern surveying instruments. Additionally, a geospatial training center developed in partnership with the Government of Korea will enhance land survey capabilities using advanced unmanned drones to expedite cadastral mapping and land registration. Beyond the regularization of existing settlements, we are also building entirely new planned settlements to provide high-quality, affordable housing for Jamaicans. The Bernard Lodge project was the first of this large-scale master plan development and represents a new era in sustainable and structured community development in Jamaica. Already, to date, 6,000 units have been completed or are under construction, and they are moving at a rapid pace. When it is all finished, there will be about 15,000 homes. The next planned development of this kind will be in Innswood. I have given directives to the NHT to lead a multi-agency team to undertake the master planning for lands at Innswood, in addition to lands slated for development along the St. John's Road corridor. It will take about a year and a half to do the master planning, to secure approvals, to mobilize resources, to treat with the necessary drainage, to deal with the roadway, and then to where we have lands to go through a process of divestment, and then to deal with common infrastructure. This next chapter is about building a Jamaica where hard work is rewarded, where dreams are nurtured, and where prosperity is not just for the few, but for all.
Beyond our lifetime, our legacy lives on. But without a will, that legacy can become a tangled web of uncertainty. So the Administrator General's Department helps us to understand the importance of having a will and how this agency of the government ensures your loved ones are protected in the absence of one.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm Theodore Henry. While actually, because death is an inevitable part of life, there are steps we can and should take to ensure our affairs are in order to lessen the burden on those left behind. In today's episode, we'll explore the significance of having a will and the crucial role played by the Administrator General's Department, AGD, before and after death. Joining us to shed light on this important topic is Karen Campbell-Basco, Deputy Administrator General at the AGD. Welcome to Get the Facts, Lady Basco.
Thank you for having me.
Campbell-Basco.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, so let's jump right into this. Now, most people have the answer to this question already, but I think you can answer it from a different perspective.
Okay, I try.
Why is it important to have a will in Jamaica?
Yes, it's very important to have a will, particularly because this is the only document that speaks for an individual after death. Some persons may make some arrangements prior to death. The challenge is we do not know when death will come, and so the ideal position is to have a will in place just in case. And when death comes, you will now have that document where we're now able to distribute your assets according to your wishes.
So will isn't old people thing?
No, not at all. As long as you are over the age of 18, it is believed that you have started to acquire assets, even if it's just that favorite tablet that you have or that phone, it has value. Wow. And so we encourage persons, once you've attained the age of 18, and that's our legal requirement, write your will, make your will, decide what's going to happen to those assets or those items that you have that might have sentimental value, that probably jewelry that grandma left for you and your sister really wanted it. What do you want to have happen to that jewelry that is sentimental in value, might not dollar value, but you want to decide who gets it should you pass on.
Got it. So in my understanding, I don't think creating a will is just a tear out of paper out of my book and I say such and such and such. You mentioned legal requirements.
Yes.
What are those?
So there are some formalities. It's very simple to make the will. The legal requirements in terms of the paper is that, one, it must be in writing. It must be signed by the person.
Sorry, pardon me. It must be in writing, not typing.
Must be in writing. And writing could be computer generated, but it must come out of the computer. So we are not at this stage yet where you're going to have it saved on the computer and probably use e-signatures. We're not there yet when it comes to wills. So you could type it on the computer, but it has to be printed and then later signed. You could also have your will in Braille. The law does allow for the will to be in Braille. So handwriting, typewriter, computer generated, or Braille.
Physical?
Yes, physical copy. Doesn't matter what it's on. It could be the piece of paper from the book. We've seen wills on the back of a calendar that's 20 years dated.
I thought you were going to say a napkin. What
it
calendar
could be on the napkin as well.
Okay.
I mean, they'd have to explain why a napkin as opposed to, but as long as it's legible, we can see what's happening, and the testator signed, and two persons also witness the signing of the testator.
Testator being?
The testator is the person who made the will.
Got it.
So once we can witness the signing, once we can confirm that he signed or she, and two persons, we call them witnesses, also witness the signing by the testator, and the testator also witnesses them sign the will as well. We would want to confirm that that is a valid will in terms of formality.
Right.
Further, for the person making the will, I mentioned earlier they need to at least have attained the age of 18. In Jamaica, you're an adult as at 18 upwards.
Right.
We also want you to have the necessary, let's call it mental capacity. Must be of sound mind, sound body. So for example, if somebody is ill, not well, and that illness is causing them to have bouts of probably dizziness, not understanding what's happening, awareness, the times when they're out of it, so to speak, it's not the time for them to make the will. Because anybody could now come and contest to say, during the period when the will was made, I highly doubt the person had the mental capacity.
We've had these challenges in the news.
Yes.
You know, a person was taken advantage of. And
yes. Further to, the will must not have been made further to undue influence or fraud. So if somebody, and I'm going the extreme now, holds a gun to somebody's head and say, sign this, which is what they're purporting to be the person's will, if it's later borne out that it was through that undue influence, it is not a valid will.
How does the AGD factor into my will?
Okay. Well, as the statutory body that's primarily charged with the responsibility of managing estates, particularly those of persons who died without a will, and trusts, particularly as well for persons who have passed on, we have a mandate to also assist with educating the public. And so part of our PR campaign is to encourage persons to plan for death. So estate planning and will making is part of the estate planning process.
Right.
So that's where we start in terms of encouraging. While an individual may name the Administrator General as the executor in their estate, because the law does allow
the person to carry out the...
Yes, to ask the AG to carry out the activities after they have passed on, there's no requirement that it must be the AG. And as I mentioned in the earlier segment, a competent person, responsible enough, is good. Right. But if they do name the AG, one thing I'll point out, the AG acts alone if they are executor, so no other person can co-executor with the Administrator General, and that's by law. If we are named executor, then we take the estate and we take it through from the beginning, which is to confirm, get the grant, determine the assets, and then pay the debts and funeral expenses if that has not yet been taken care of, and then distribute what's left to the persons who are named in the will as beneficiaries. If it is that we are not named in the will, then we can assist persons who may need guidance to determine next steps if they themselves have been named as executor or they are beneficiaries to a will and no action has yet been taken in that estate.
So paint a picture for us then. What happens if I die intestate?
So if you die intestate, and that's dying without a will, then you leave it to the law to decide who gets what. And when I say the law, there's currently legislation that dictates an individual dies without a will or without a valid will, and we're now going to distribute to, they have it in categories, primary beneficiaries, and if there's nobody in the primary, then the secondary. For example, within the primary beneficiary group, if you die without a will, it's your spouse, children that will first step up.
Legal spouse or...
Well, in Jamaica, it has to be somebody who, one, either was married at the time and the formalities of marriage, the end result is usually a marriage certificate. So if you present a marriage certificate, that's valid, and it will now confirm that you are the spouse for the deceased person. If, however, there is no marriage certificate, but the person who remains alive from that union can prove to a competent court that while the deceased person was alive, he was single, let us say it was a male who died, the female was also single, and they cohabitated as though they were a man and wife. Right. So they lived in the same house, they had the same joint account, they managed the affairs of the children together. That's where their primary residence was in terms of living with each other, things that are usual and common for husband and wife. If they can prove that to a court, and that was for 5 years or more.
5 years or more.
Yes, okay. Then the court would declare what we call a common law spouseship. And then the person can benefit as though they were legally married.
Got it. And AGD steps into intestate situations, or it's referred to them?
We must step in when the person who died intestate died leaving a minor, and that's anybody under the age of 18 years.
Okay.
This is where our journey ends, but only for today. Do join us again tomorrow when we'll bring another informative program. In the meantime, stay connected via our website, jis.gov.jm. And while you're online, send your feedback to Jamaica Magazine at jis.gov.jm or via X at JIS News. You may also find us on all the major social media platforms and through our mobile app that's Android and iOS compatible. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.